Because they bumped that up a week now. All that is
Microphones.
No, we really shouldn't. This can just.
That'll
be-
that'll just mess up. More times, yeah,
All the towns represented were legal.
legal.
You guys are also early. I'm gonna be late back.
Thanks for the help with the broadband stuff.
Supposedly a telco company.
Oh, I stopped and talked to this guy that had flags and stuff and asked him what he was doing. You probably already know this, but,
We swear at everybody.
but yeah, people were complaining that they thought it was the public works. They were like, this guy is swearing so much, he needs to report it. My God, it wasn't us, but I talked to him, he was very pleasant to me. He said he was working for,
I think we're down to like 4
Point
Oh, wow.
Broadband
getting blind.
out of Texas, and they were preparing to string up fiber. It's not even email, actually. I said, so, is that gonna be like a competitor to stuff with them? Or he said, oh, I don't know, we really haven't been in this area. I've been out of Texas. They were measuring everything to figure out where it all go. It's like,
Also when you listed it.
You guys will be getting your telco, isn't that wonderful?
Oh, yeah. At least it's not the gas.
Yes.
Is that, they were talking about that a little.
Time to just do some intro stuff.
we're good.
6:30 will start from the preliminary stuff. The first of which I really want to say to everybody, welcome back. It's good to have you back. It's been a while, a couple of years, but Michael will be the only one representing Hope tonight because Brian can't make it, and I'm not sure what have you heard from Josh at all.
I haven't heard anything from him, but as of our selectmen's meeting the other night,
Yeah.
he was planning on being.
Okay,
here.
well, we're
He
gonna
was like, who's missing?
Well, we're just gonna proceed anyway. And get it on. So I'm presuming that Mike, you'll be representing Open Total. And if he doesn't show up, I'm presuming that you're representing, here he is, so you're not any longer representing you. Hey, Josh. So with that, I'd like to call the this board meeting for Midco Solid Waste Corporation. So it's hybrid. If anybody's listening, they can know that the link is on our agenda for a hybrid. With that, being this is our annual meeting, in fact, we have a couple of homework items to do before we start the guts of the meeting, and that is specifically the election for the corporation chair, vice chair, secretary, and treasurer. So we need a motion or a recommendation for each of those positions or one at a time, however you want to handle it.
I'd like to nominate Bob Passiani as the chair for Midco Solid Waste for the next term.
Second.
Comments, discussion, please. All those in favor? It's unanimous, 100% there. Vice Chair. I would like to the privilege of nominating Kern again as Vice Chair to accept the position for the next term.
Second.
Motion made, second discussion. All those in favor? Again, 100%, thank you. Last, no, not last, the next will be Treasurer, next is Treasurer listed twice on our, well, once the appointment with Treasurer. I did 1 and 3, mine the same, but the Treasurer, I'd like the motion for a nomination for Treasurer.
So moved.
Right, I did.
I move to nominate Allison McKellar.
Perfect.
Second.
Motion made in second discussion, all those in favor? Unanimous. Secretary, nomination. Who's our current secretary?
It's a very easy position.
I nominate Deborah Hall.
Second.
Second, motion made second. Okay, you can say it. Thank you, Eric, appreciate it. All those in favor? Okay, it's good. With that, we get into our action items, which is specifically, as usual, the review and approval of the March 23rd meeting minutes. Do we have any comments on the meeting items? And unfortunately, Hope will not have an opportunity to comment because if you weren't here. Are there any comments on this? I'll have a motion to accept.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made a second, just for the discussion.
Odors spelled wrong, but
Okay, let me just let you know, so you can fix it.
well,
What is?
odor, like odor control building,
Oh,
What page?
one. I mean, it's
okay, it's true.
could be OR, but
No, it's on record.
I mean, it's an important part of our facilities.
Oh.
It is.
Just so.
Yeah.
Hopefully it won't be
Typo.
important. It's not important right now, actually. It's not at all important. It could be.
Motion made and seconded, discussion, all in favor. Get it in this, with one exception, Hope can't vote on it, because of one absent and one non-attended. The next item is again, the appointment of treasurer we've already done, designate authority to sign warrants, that's part of the treasurer's responsibility. I don't believe we have to have that listed twice, but.
I was just reviewing the interlocal agreement the other day or bylaws, and I think
It is.
it's the treasurer and one other person.
The person signed it.
And
Or it's the man, oh, no, it's the manager and one of the, we're supposed to designate the manager,
You're
give the
right.
manager the ability and one other person. So I guess that would be.
Well, the manager's
And
true, so I think we did have a designee beyond you.
which is, I mean, your name is on the warrants every,
That's correct.
so it can be either you
I
or me.
was the designee as a backup for you.
Yeah.
Correct. So we need a designee to sign warrants, alternate, a second person. Motion,
So it's currently you?
Yeah.
I think I move to designate Bob as the designee.
second.
motion made second, discussion, all those in favor? Unanimous again, thank you. Are there any director have a specific comment not in the agenda besides welcome you, right? Again and again. Allison.
So I know this was, some of this is part of the manager's report, but, the household hazardous waste day, I don't know, was anybody else there? I attended my first, household hazardous waste day because I forget every single year. And I think I'm not alone, but, so we volunteered to help a little bit with the traffic control or whatever they needed, because in previous years, it's been like a traumatic experience for some of the employees. And so they did a little bit differently this year, but it was interesting to see people lining up ahead of time like a concert. I mean, it started at 12, but people were lining up at the gate, like, and I was like, what is going on? But they knew that otherwise they were gonna be waiting in line for a really long time. But it struck me as expensive, and it's, you know, they pay, the user pays some, and we subsidize that some. Other places subsidize it completely. And I noticed that there were some people that weren't participating, that were just curious about what was going on, and they were like, oh, wow, you know, you could see that I have all this stuff at my house. They're asking a lot of questions about how much it costs. And like I had a big Tupperware thing full of stuff and it cost me $75. So I imagine it is something that for some people, it's a deciding factor of whether they can get rid of this hazardous waste or not. So at some point, I think we should look into, also, there wouldn't have been any more, even if more people had come, there wouldn't have been any more time. I mean, the company that comes and does it, every single second was utilized. And so we probably should look at that at some point. That's all.
Anyone else? Anybody else will go on to our, we have a very comprehensive, as usual, facility manager report in our packet. I think, and presumably you've all read it and looked at it. Does anybody have a specific question on an item for Dave before I ask him for highlighting? No, if you don't, then Dave, are there one or two items you'd like to highlight just to make sure that
Sure. So, due to the accident, everybody knows we're trying to do the hybrid model of the building and eliminate some of that fork truck traffic. Well, the incident we had was a fork truck related incident. And I believe that if we would probably be doing the things like we talked about doing, bring everything in the building, probably eliminate that situation.
Mike, you may not be familiar with that one, because you weren't here.
Yeah, I heard about it.
Oh, okay, if you did, I was gonna suggest you do like we did and do a set up a time to go walk the site with Dave and check her out. That might be the best way.
Cause I still work with Russell, so I got updated. What had happened.
Okay, okay, I just wanna make sure.
Oh, on the incident or on the plan for,
We're talking about the hybrid,
Oh,
different, eliminating the recycling the big containers
yeah.
and utilizing the building as a minor
Instead
modification.
of dumping the truck inside. kind of thing.
Well, no,
Correct.
people would be going outside, throwing stuff into the blue building from the outside into those bins inside,
Into the stalls.
into the
Where
stalls.
the
inside.
scale is, yeah, the scale will be moved, people will come by there. There'll be holes cut in the building, be dumping it in the building
You may
originally.
have some questions to your, we haven't done, I would suggest you do like we had done, but we didn't have the last board meeting. We did many of us did a sidewalk, it was very helpful.
Yeah.
I would suggest you do the same for some of the current things, a little different maybe than when you were here last.
Yeah.
Right?
The objective is to eliminate bringing the cans back and forth, but not do it in one step, do it in two steps. Run it as like a hybrid, the old way and the new
Oh,
way.
yeah.
To see how the new way works, and then if it proves itself true, expand upon the newer way, which would eliminate the old way.
Yeah,
And take out a lot of the traffic and labor and hazards associated with the job. So the only other thing is, the 2021 annual report was submitted. The closure costs are estimated to be $2.6 million, and the life expectancy of the landfill is between 6.5 and 14.8 years.
6.5 and 14, no surprise.
Yeah.
it's
So that
the
number,
first, that is a surprise. That's the first time it's ever increased in.
Well, it's been 7 years.
5 to 7
It's been
for-
7 years for about 4 years.
Right.
Never that.
incredible. That's like last night when I was here, we were talking 5 to 7. So.
Right.
so,
That's good news. And 2.6 million for closure costs.
yeah,
That's important stuff because we're gonna have to evaluate that soon.
We looking at that.
Strategic committee decide, because this affects investing too, 14 years is a big difference from 7.
Yeah. What we really are gonna need to look at is the leachate costs long term. And how
That's
that
another,
affects that, 'cause
that's related without question. Anything else, Dave?
no, I think if everyone wrote the report, that went over most of the things, I wanted to say, if anybody has any questions, I please to review. But other than that, I don't think I have any, a lot of what we were talking about this first phase of working with the guys over the people at the facility was kind of getting them back into the groove of doing things and, building up the teamwork type of aspect of the operation and just, cleaning things up again and getting back to basics. So that's really what we've been doing.
Great. Then, so item 6, which is the redeemable bottle contract award. What's that?
Beth has posted the redeemable bottle bid, I guess. And,
Yeah.
And it's part of the process, and I believe we have one current organization that has expressed interest in it, and but we do put it out to bid in case there's others. And we're waiting for results of that.
Okay,
Is that on the website for anybody that wanted to, when is the deadline?
I think it was in the paper.
Yesterday,
Oh,
yes,
oh,
ma'am.
so we only got,
we only got the line,
You only got one.
so we can,
we know, we.
Say it again, Beth.
we only have the Lions that applied, and, they do meet all the criteria.
Oh, so should we vote on that?
We'll vote on it.
Sorry,
So we can vote on that? too?
yes,
Yeah.
yes. We have to vote on basically approve the Lions Club.
What is, sorry, was that in the packet? There.
I didn't even see it.
Is it, and would it be the same cost sharing?
Yeah, we should elaborate this, as it wasn't in the fact, we should understand the
733, nothing changed.
Right, but some people might not know they get 67 and we get 33, or is it the other way around?
They get 67, we get 33 as set in our policy. We have a policy.
Right, I mean, that's at the discretion of the board and every so often people say, well, this is a big revenue source that we could be. I mean, we collect all kinds of recyclable items, only some of them have value. And so we're giving some of it away to a group, but they do a lot of good things.
Yeah, they do. The only, and Dave, you might be, is that the only managerial question I have is if they're doing operations on our site and our facility, do they carry insurance?
I mean,
I would imagine they would have to, right? Yeah, and the other thing is that with this expansion of
Yeah,
we're gonna have to probably move them in another location.
I'm sure that was not a problem. I was just concerned for the.
Yeah, they probably supply us with some type of insurance certificate or something.
Do they have?
So they do.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're 100% covered.
That doesn't let anybody get into.
I was-
Everything in September, so they're up to date right now. and they'll-
Okay, then I'd like to get a motion to approve the Lions Club as our redeemable bottle contract.
I move that the Metro Solid Waste Board of Directors approve the Lions Club redeemable bottle contract submitted with, yeah, the redeemable bottle.
That's happened to us before, by the way.
Hopefully not here.
Trust me, yeah.
Usually a term of 1 year, and then if
For a term of 1 year.
the manager decides, they can extend it for you.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
for at least 1 year.
Yep. We can revisit it here. I have a second.
I'll second.
Thank you, Eric. Any further discussion?
Does anyone have a copy of this agreement that I can look at quickly?
I don't see where you shouldn't have a copy of it.
That,
It's proposal, I presume.
you mean the bid?
What
Yeah.
agreement?
The
With
bid.
Lions
The
Club.
bid.
yeah, they didn't put it in the packet because there was, the deadline was today, so they weren't sure if they got more. They didn't want to only put the Lions Club in the
But
packet, but.
Okay,
but I
That
think
has it.
you should send the
Yeah.
board a
The
copy.
only thing that changes is the president each year, so the only thing that changed was contact
Yeah,
information.
I get that, but you still should send a copy of it after the meeting to all the board members.
Josh, you're gonna see it.
that's fine. So, how many years have we worked with the Lions Club? Why has it always been this percentage breakdown? How did we come to this agreement of what, 67 to 30? Okay. Do we feel like that's fair?
I don't
We
even,
renewed it.
I don't even know the quantification was 67% of what, $1,000, it's not 67% of $10,000.
Right, so do we,
Which is a big
Right.
question.
The idea is it's a little bit of a hassle. So some transfer stations, yeah. It would, like, not the current situation, but if our employees, if we took it on ourselves, it would be a bigger hassle, or it's a bigger
Right,
hassle.
So just,
Yeah.
can I elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah.
In my experience, this is the biggest headache in the world, okay? Because what happens is you get mixed in with garbage, there's all kinds of things in the bottles, nobody likes going through them. And if you just put them in the container and bring them to the redemption center, they'll do it for about a week, and then they call you up and say, we don't want to do this anymore.
Yeah.
So this is not something we would prefer to tackle. It would be nice if we got a little bit more of the pie, I guess, so to speak, but I don't know if there's room for negotiation on that. It says, we got $11,283, and if
That's a third.
that's a
So
third,
the total was 33,000.
so.
that's not nothing.
No.
So those are the numbers, I guess that's what I was looking for as we were.
Beth, you know what the 6733 has been and how long we've had it for, and getting an idea.
I want to say we renewed this about 5 years ago.
So I think we went over it when I was here before.
About
and
5
then
years
we'll go over
ago,
it.
and,
I remember it's been long.
we wrote the policy, we set those figures, and then we also said it needed to be posted every 2 years with the allowable 1 year extension in the park and manager.
But they do all the labor out of it, or,
Well, we help them quite a bit. We set up all the bins for them. We put them all away after they're done, and then they come in and they do all the sorting. They go through all, they do the hard part, which is handwork.
yeah, the nasty stuff.
That, right, no, I mean,
Like you said, it gets,
we couldn't give those balls away.
right,
I mean, with Public Works at one point, we were having,
Oh, right.
remember, we were really having a hard time when we collect them. Nobody wants to go through them, even if they get them for free.
Yeah.
So if that gives you any idea of the,
We have that problem at work as well.
yeah.
We have that problem in my house.
So I don't think this is something we want to kind of.
You know, even when people complain that they're not making enough money,
Mhm.
I personally have said, hey, I know where you can get about $25 a week, you just take those balls.
Yeah.
They won't do it,
No,
so, you know. it's
But yet the
just-
Legion Hall, I kind of thought maybe the Legion Hall would be interested because they've been encouraging people to drop off.
Yeah.
But I don't think the Lions Club is quite a volunteer group that is dedicated to doing it, and it's not something that a lot of other groups are ready to mobilize on. And there'd be a big chance, I think, that some group would say they wanted to do it and then
yeah, well.
not
if
follow
you find they started it, that's a dirty job.
Mm.
So if
People
we,
don't, if not everybody takes care of the ball, they sit outside in the trash can, fill up full of water, and they take them over there, and they stink and.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
I mean, I've been over there, you know, because we separate the stuff down Public Works, and I've dropped stuff over there, and that bin just stinks, it's over there, and it's like.
so if
Who wants to pick
we,
it up?
if we look this through. Obviously, it's a major hindrance to us
oh,
when
absolutely.
it's,
This would
when
take
it's
care-
being done. Is there a way, when we modify our building and everything, is there a way we can make a change so that it's not quite such a burden on us?
I was thinking of putting them in another building.
Okay.
All together,
Yep,
and getting them right out of the recycle building.
That makes a lot of sense.
So it
Yeah.
drops our
Yeah.
window.
That is kind of separate entity altogether.
yeah.
But
If we can do something like that, it doesn't make me feel like maybe we
Yeah.
need to change the percentage and, you know what I mean? Because if it's taken away from our man hours, you know, and stuff like that, and if we can make it a little bit more user friendly for them and for us, so that we don't have to have our hands on that stuff. I'm good with the percentages right now, but if we can't, and I don't know if everybody else agrees, if we can't make a change to get some of it off our hands, then maybe we should see if we can adjust the percentages a little bit.
Yeah, well, we've got, this is a 1 year, plus
Yep.
an option for more.
Yep.
I suspect you're right, this is a good point, but I think we would probably be best to do exactly what you said and defer. If this doesn't happen and lower our costs, then
Yeah.
next year we should look at changing the percentages.
yeah, so if we can
And it's
set
good
this
that
up,
it's a 1 year thing.
yeah.
Yeah.
Like after a year, if we can set it up to be a little more efficient for them, we can say, hey, look, you know, set this up for you, it's a little more efficient, we'd like to have a little bit more money to recover our costs for that.
Yeah, I think it'd be good to have a reason.
Yeah.
To have changed the numbers rather than saying, hey, we
Yeah.
want a little more exaggerated.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah, I don't,
But I agree.
I wouldn't want to go to Bob Oxton and say, we're gonna.
Oh, I'll
take
go
away
to him. I'll go to him.
That was it. We have a motion and seconded, any further discussion?
Part of this too is that the organization should be directly involved in the community and charitable work, so it's not like they're spending this on
They're quasi public
Yeah.
organizations. So,
Yeah. kind of donation.
all those in favor? Unanimous, thank you very much. So part of the more the meat of our meeting, we have, as you know, our packets of finance committee report. And there are 3 items we need to address for vote for credit card. Additional P charge of FY23 and landfill fees. Allison, you want to take us through highlights? But first of all, does anybody have a specific question they want to ask of that report? We'll get to the financials next, not the financials, but just the finance committee's report. Yeah, and then I also highlight the anything we need to do If they're not, Allison, just go ahead.
Hold on, what are you asking me to do? First? Not give an overview, but.
No,
just the votes, or-
well, again, just like the management report, if you want to highlight anything that you think is really important for the board to focus on, it's yours to do.
I think the main takeaway is that this operation continues to cost us a lot of money, and it's going to cost us more money in the future, and we're going to either need to raise fees or increase taxes. And
Increase assessment.
taxes, assessments. And that we had a good finance committee meeting with both Dave Kinney and John Duke were there. And going through, we ended up at the end of the year, we're going to be okay. They're still finalizing the year-end financials, and there may be some questions about which things that we did could be funded from the, which reserve account or whatever, and that will change a few $1,000s here or there, whether we're technically in the red or in the black. But all in all, we're ending up perfectly fine as planned, but that depends on spending from reserve accounts. For several years, we've been spending from the facility improvement reserve and the equipment replacement reserve and the unassigned fund balance in order to keep assessments flat. But we've been ending up kind of okay, mostly because not always for the reasons that we planned to be okay. I know when Dave was looking over the budget, he was a little bit like, oh my gosh, you guys, like you're way off on some of these things. And the town managers and I were like, oh, yeah, it's kind of always like this. Recycling saved us. We're budgeting for very, very low recycling revenue, and the recycling revenue has been much higher, like by in the order of like $100,000 higher than we thought. But we're losing a lot more money in the landfill than we planned to. And that's for a variety of reasons, but it's kind of, if the stars didn't align and have one thing compensate for the other, we could end up, we have a healthy unassigned fund balance, but it's not going to be healthy for forever. So it comes down to that basic philosophy of whether, how subsidized do we believe this operation should be, and which parts of it. So both John and Dave Kinney remember when we went to the pay-as-you-throw system where Camden's assessment used to be twice as much as it is now, even with inflation and all of that. So we've been on this trajectory of bringing the assessments down and trying to keep fees paying for that while not charging for recycling, because the philosophy has been that we should make that possible for people. But so it's we're at that place again where we came to the end of our eco main contract. The last time we raised bag fees was at the beginning of that contract, and it was kind of planned out to fall over that 3 years. Now we're in this interim period with waste management, but most of us, even if we were to continue with the landfill and waste management forever, we all know those fees are going to go up too, and they've been going up a little more than we expected for the reasons outlined. So one of the things that Mike Martinez had done that we'd started on a little bit with the finance committee before was like an evaluation of what fees would have to be set at in order to either keep assessments steady or to bring them down. And so we started looking at that a little bit. And one of the things that we basically concluded, bag fees are going to need to go up. That per ton and per bag fee need to go up if we want to, stabilize assessments. And that's going to be a little bit of a process, and the finance committee is happy to start that and present it to the board, but we wanted to check in with everybody and give you the opportunity to say, oh, no, we really want to taxpayer money should be funding these eventual increases. We don't want to raise fees. We just want to go back to our towns and ask for more money.
It's just a strategic question.
Yeah, I mean, it's a philosophical question. It's I stated many times what my feeling is about that. I want to pay for my trash and not my neighbor's trash. And that has been the, that's been the policy direction of the board over time, but it's good to check in there. I think there's some things that should probably be subsidized a little bit more, like household hazardous waste. And, we all kind of, that's our job, is to look at like, where do people need help paying for things and where is their community good? So the big thing that we think there should be action on right away are the landfill fees, because if you looked at that table in the report, we are just spending a lot more operationally in the landfill than we're bringing in. And this year was a little bit of an anomaly because the volume was down. Some of that is because of things like separating out the mattresses and sheetrock, and we're doing this thing where they're mixed loads, and so it's a little bit of it's in a different category, but not so much of it that it doesn't. We're still really short in terms of revenue projections. And in the past, there's been, and then the leachate costs, which is unfortunate, but those costs are going to continue to go up. We still pump about 50,000 gallons of water a day to the Camden treatment plant. And the in the future, those prices are predicted to continue to escalate some for Camden. So if you look at like and those costs don't go away even when the landfill's closed. We would hope to reduce them significantly because less water will be going in there. But when we think about, we have this limited amount of time to be actually having the landfill generate revenue. Hopefully it's not one of the things that is required. Many transfer stations don't have CDD disposal. It's not one of the things that's required of towns. So, and it's not used equally by everybody. So we had a discussion with the John and Dave too, who has lots of experience with the Rockland. They made some different decisions. But anyway, if we want to be able to, we looked at basically the average of the volume that we've been bringing in, and if we wanted to have costs, revenue cover operating costs, then the fee should go up to right around 192 a ton. And then the other thing, I don't know if anybody saw Rockland just increased their fees, but this idea that the landfill is that we're keeping the other towns out to try to reserve space for residents of the 4 towns. That is a perfectly fine idea if the idea is to be able to provide sort of a subsidized service to people that need to dispose of CDD for a long period of time, and you want everybody to have to pay for that, then great. The other way to limit the amount of stuff coming in is to raise fees.
Right.
And so we were unanimous in feeling like we should try to raise fees, see what that does to the amount of volume coming in.
And do away with the restriction.
Yeah, and monitor it, but
that might play to the earlier data we have about the longevity of the landfill. Remember, the restriction was a kick in the butt from looking at, we're filling it up, and we're filling it up with towns that aren't here, and that's what kicked us into the 140 and restriction of 4 towns. So if it does look like more like 14 years, that kind of opens the valve a little bit and may increase revenue. Now, whether it's 192 or I hate our numbers, or 200,
I mean,
whatever it is. But the second part of that philosophy is we're transferring these costs, which is $500,000 a year, because the budget I see in here, to people who are bringing the CDD in, and that's why should it be you know, the
A
assessment.
lot of people don't use it at all, you know,
No,
don't use,
no,
hardly use
they
the
don't.
vehicle at all, so.
If they're bringing demolition, the user should pay, and they should pay a fair price, and to my, at least the 192, but, and yeah, again, I would agree with moving the restriction also, because that data, which is not surprising to me, that it suggests we have a little more, and by the way, you also recommended to, let's look at it 6 months into the process to see how it's running. I think it makes a lot of sense. Josh.
Well, I'd like to make a motion that the board set the fee for the landfill and construction and demolition debris at $192 a ton or 10 cents a pound, and remove the restriction on material from outside the 4 towns. And that the impact of the change be reviewed in 6 months to monitor the impact on revenue and volume.
There's a second.
Sure, say that again.
You didn't get all that? I got it all.
Eric seconded. Further discussion. Anybody else have any feedback on that? I think it makes a heck of a lot of sense.
Yeah.
I agree with, good job.
I mean, there's a lot more discussion that needs to happen too, because we should be focusing a lot on trying different ways of trying to reduce the amount of leachate that has to go to Camden. So, you know, the other thing that's coming up is PFAS, and
Yeah.
we've been testing our leachate, but it's very likely that there will be a requirement for us to do some sort of removal, which is going to be even more expensive. So there are a lot of things that would be a very good use of money and planning energy in the future to try to reduce the amount of water. Because if and to recalculate, okay, what do they think? How much do we think it's going to be reduced when the landfill is capped?
Yeah.
Because I'm all about extending the life of the landfill, but not if it costs us, you know, a couple $100,000 a year and more because we have it open, you know, when all that water can go in. The reason Rockland ultimately decided to fill fast was because it was the only way to solve their serious odor problem.
Right.
And so it only makes sense for the landfill to be extended if it's not causing us to hemorrhage money. We don't necessarily want to hemorrhage money for longer. But anyway, it's a huge source of our costs now and in the future. And
Well, just to be clear on the motion, is there a need to have an effective date?
the interlocal agreement says that changes shall be effective. They have to be advertised for 30 days. So I
To
would
be clear.
think that when it would be.
Okay, so
effective.
it'd be into August, into August, we're gonna take effect. Question.
I'll have to take that motion from the tape because I didn't catch it.
Oh, I just,
think it's from the.
I read it verbatim
He read the highlighted,
with a comma and an and.
spreadsheet that's in the
After town.
this packet.
I'm sorry. Page.
Another thing to note, that this doesn't have perpetual care built into it. So that's another component of all of this. So, you know, I think this is even not being heavy-handed.
It isn't, yeah.
This is actually
It's
just
just being
the first
gentle.
step to getting to where you need to be,
Right.
unfortunately, unless you want to pay for it in taxes. That's the decision you need to make as a group.
Well,
But ultimately, I think you need your fees to catch up a little bit to what the costs
I
are.
was just gonna say that the fees need to be, things need to be paying for themselves or as close as
They should
possible,
at
then you
least.
can focus on what you just said. And that may have to come from the taxpayer.
yeah,
And I know taking from areas that are undesignated, whatever, is good so that you know, we're not going back to anybody asking for more money. But we want the place to be close to sustaining itself.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like we have to at least try to raise fees there. If, you know, you don't want to raise fees to the point, you don't want to be $500 a ton, because at some point, you won't have anything coming in. But I think we're pretty far away from the point where somebody wants to drive to, I hope
Yeah.
residents gonna drive to Bath instead of. We did look a little bit at what people's other options would be, but we kind of have an obligation to try to get more revenue out of it. And then I think we should look at helping, you know, when there is somebody that, you know, their house burns down and they need to, that, you know, those kinds of situations could be dealt with general assistance from the towns or something, but.
Okay.
um,
so.
Yeah, I mean, even to look in the future, because if we get, when the landfill shuts down, we're still gonna take the stuff, because then you're gonna have to have it trucked off, which is an added expense.
Right, you're gonna be closer to that number when you
You're
raise
right.
the fees. And then the other thing too is,
Right.
you know, if you get your fees up a little bit, then when you do make money in recycling those other areas, you can put that away for perpetual care.
Yes,
You're just so far
That's what I was
behind right
thinking.
now, then you
almost like a reserve thing,
yeah, that's a
definitely.
little bit more conservative
Yeah.
approach.
So should it be one, you know, should we go to 200? Should we go to use of your?
Well, to me, you know, so the motion's on table first of all,
Yeah.
but we can change it, but. We're increasing by $52 a ton, I believe, which is 140 to 192, correct?
Yeah,
That's not a hell of an increase per ton. That's not a lot of money.
Per pound is how a lot of.
Right.
Exactly, and it's, you know, you're looking at 10 cents a pound, so there,
Yeah.
192. So if you were around, I just don't like the numbers, but to me,
I'm with you.
well, I think the world today, we are in a world where there's inflation. It's going, that's affecting all of our towns, it's affecting everybody. I think there is a smart general strategy the board should adopt, and that's to control the assessments. Any substantial assessments to the town, to the taxpayer, especially if we're, in this case, if we did do it, what are we funding? We're funding somebody else's CDD. That doesn't make, I can't do that to the taxpayers. So that's a good example. of
Right,
holding the
especially if
line.
you start taking it from other towns, or that's the
Right.
thing, you guys.
If Dave,
Right.
you feel that the 192 is just a modest step, I would think.
It is a modest step because perpetual care isn't in here. And if you look at the cost of building in general, like Bob was saying with inflation and everything, we haven't done any changes to our costs. Everybody else has.
How does our CDD at 192 compare with the local area?
Well,
It's higher.
significantly more, but it's a waste disposal is a factor of transportation and disposal. So if your transportation is close, you know, that's where your people will save their money and they'll pay the little bit of extra on the disposal end of it. So we're not looking for waste from far away, we're looking for waste
Yeah.
local.
But what would be the difference if you were looking at some other towns? Are they in the 200, 300?
Well, no, I mean, I think they're in the 120s to 160s, you know,
Like it says,
We have a significantly
Treasury.
more expensive
Yeah.
landfill to run than the ones that are designed to be.
it
So
doesn't
every-
change.
it's 192 or 10 cents a pound,
no.
because we can't go to the 0.96, we have to run. Because
yeah.
the system won't handle.
200.
I didn't want it to be 0.96. So
Okay, just double check.
That's hard for people.
You have to run.
So which is the number big?
Well, the 10 cents made sense. But you, I mean, you can, we generally try to have it sort of line up with the,
That's 200 a ton.
oh, yeah.
Well, you know, I'd maybe like to
Good point.
withdraw my motion and then we can start over with 200.
Please
Did we do the
Amend
10
your
cents?
motion.
Oh, that's
Josh.
because the 10 cents was left over. We had it even higher
Well,
initially.
right, initially the cost
Um,
was 266, if you really put it in, it really costs.
That's what we did when we calculated, if every year were the volume that we had last year, then it drove the cost way up. But then we were like, okay, maybe we'll average out the volume a little bit.
Over the past like 8 years, we took the average, which ended up being, 5,000 cubic yards, there's two tons in a yard, and it ended up being 2,500 versus 16.
Maybe we use incrementally, start with 200 and look at it as 6 months.
I think that
Yeah,
makes
yeah.
a lot of sense.
I'd like to amend my motion, so instead of 192 a ton, have it say $200 a ton. Is the second okay with that?
Yeah.
Whoever the second was.
Thank you, Eric.
Great.
Any further discussion? Those in favor? Unanimous, thank you so much. Allison, to your next one, which is, well, I think we skipped right
Yeah,
past.
good. You asked me to type, I went straight to the what seems most important.
That's, you did a good job. But credit card processing was before that on.
Yes, that's, I mean, we can talk about this for however long you want, but, hopefully it was pretty simple. Again, the philosophy is to not absorb costs, but to pass them along. It's a convenience, it's a hassle for us to implement, but we want to do it, and this,
So it's the 4%
yes.
amount that we charge to the users of the credit card only.
Mhm.
Okay. Anybody want to discuss it?
Well, the system will figure that out.
Yes.
because
Yeah, I agree.
We know how a lot of people are with math. And I want to make sure that if they swipe the card, it will automatically 4%.
I'd like to give you a report of exactly how it works when I know how it all works.
Right,
Oh, we do know how it works.
I mean, well, I mean, I'd like to give a.
Right, well, you get charged per transaction, right?
Right,
Right, we're going with a full point of sale system. The only
Right.
way
it's on.
it's gonna be kind of like a restaurant, so it's costing us a little bit more money than the towns. Because they just have that 2.5%, but the state through the state system, but in order to process all these payments quickly, we need it to be, like the whole system basically had to be upgraded. We had a meeting, in a few years, we might want to look
So
and make sure we're getting the
What's
best.
it cost us per use to use a card? What percentage? Is
It's,
it?
3.85.
no,
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
yeah, so the 4% covers
It's
that.
really, yeah, and I think we, obviously signage and all this stuff is important too, but I think any motion we make would be contingent on the point about make sure it hits the card. We don't, because the restaurant thing, the 3% on American Express drives them nuts about how to pass that on or not.
it says all this in the I don't know,
Okay, all right.
the contract is kind of,
And the other thing too is it's more a matter of, do we bury the cost in our fees, or do we just charge the user? That's really the question.
No, it should be charged. I mean, gas stations charge you, if you pay this, and you
That's-
pay
that's-
cash.
that's what
I mean,
you voted.
We're gonna do the same thing.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I don't see a problem with it. If you wanna use credit card, then you pay the fee. Why should I?
Yeah, this is, I mean, that's.
and it's a little bit, we're charging a tiny bit more.
Profit, so they have to do the same thing.
So 4% is the maximum that we're allowed
Yeah.
to charge. I mean, there's a chance you guys could have been like, oh no, if it's 3.888 for us, then, but, so it's more just
Yeah,
a housekeeping
Yeah.
thing, I think, a little bit.
What do you mean, the maximum? That's
That's a state law.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was one of the things that hung up some of this for a while. There were rules about not passing that fee along. It was being, that's why different stores will have rules about
right,
minimum
minimal.
purchases in order to use a credit card, because they were like absorbing the fee, or
Yeah, if you use a credit
municipalities
card
are
just
now
for a
allowed
cup
to
of
do something a little
coffee,
different.
Yeah.
it costs them more if you use the card than they make it the coffee.
Right.
So
Right.
the fee is gonna be a percentage flat.
Yeah.
Not a per transaction fee plus a percentage or.
Right, we're
Okay.
going with that flat fee. They give different options.
Right.
So because the Ardia is gonna, they're gonna make some money on this. They are charged a different, all our payments are gonna go through them. They're charged a different fee for pretty much every transaction based on the amount of the purchase, the card used, all this stuff. So they basically do that math and then they quote us a percentage, which was 3.88, which honestly, there's probably a little bit of room for negotiation
Sure.
in that, but if we can deal with that.
Yeah,
later.
usually initially your rates sometimes higher anyway, because they wanna see what your volume really comes out
Yeah,
to
yeah.
and what kind of volume discount they can start
Yeah.
processing through. So that makes sense. I mean.
It seems,
It's,
yeah,
it's not that crazy, and if it helps people that don't wanna pay cash or
Yeah.
whatever. And if some of these larger, we're gonna be able to take like the AR payments, some of those, if we're gonna process those out if they wanted to, or is it just?
What are AR
thinking?
Okay.
Yeah,
Oh.
they have receivable.
Well, it's
yeah, that's,
Or you
that's
just-
what Beth is kind of going over with us. But
Yeah.
it's supposed to integrate with our system.
Okay,
But a trucking company could pay credit card plus 4%.
right, which they probably wouldn't, because then that's passing on, but.
Just curious, people could pay their bill online and things like that.
Josh,
How often at the gatehouse do you hear, or how often do customers hand a credit card over? Okay,
Even with that sign there.
I-
there would be
well, yeah,
cash or check.
I've heard a lot of comments from Camdonians that, why don't you have credit card?
Yeah.
Everything else is credit card. I don't have cash with me to buy the bag.
Yeah.
What is 12, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, that happens sometimes. So I think it's yet convenience.
but it's like many times a day.
How many here are you carry cash with? I mean, most people.
I mean, I use that to ask my wife.
Yeah, I'll be like, I'm going to the dump, I need to buy my kids.
Yeah.
I just don't do
It's for that reason I always buy my yellow bags at Hannaford.
Yeah, yeah.
Look at that. But anyway, it's quite a bit, Josh. It's quite a bit.
Yeah.
So I have a motion for the 4% credit card processing fee.
I move that,
Go ahead.
okay.
I get it.
I move that the board set a 4% credit card processing fee to be charged as a convenience fee for customers wishing to pay with the credit card, and that all fee schedules contain a note alerting people of the charge.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? All's in favor? Unanimous, thank you very much. And also the last item you had highlighted was some other miscellaneous fees, we'll discuss those.
Yes, basically, there are. It's very similar to the conversations we've had in the past about sheetrock, where we authorized and encouraged the manager to adjust fees as needed to keep up with our costs. And that has been a target that actually has moved a little bit faster than they were even able to keep up with, which, I mean, it's just the case across the board. So there are all kinds of things that, like Freon or, you know, what's that? Tires, you know, brush is something that we dwelled on a little bit in the past. We're definitely losing some money on that, but as we always have, but we're not losing any. It's not like quite as unsafe as it was. So in the past, sometimes, you know, fees have come back, you know, always to the board in kind of this very slow way. There are a bunch of them that some of it's it's not just our direct costs, like what we're paying to somebody else, but it's the operational part of it. Like when Dave's been noticing things like, you know, just the amount of moving around of like the monitors. Like we don't charge anything for computer monitors right now. Why? Every other place does. You know, there are a bunch of things like that. And so I think we should, the discussion that we had with the town managers was encouraging and authorizing those sort of incidental non-bag fees. We know that when the per ton costs and the bag fee cost goes up, that's going to be this, you know, much larger discussion that comes back to the board, and we inform our select boards and all of that. But that these other fees, like rugs, for instance, they're thinking about pulling out rugs because they cause problems in landfill and they cause problems in other places. So if we were to have every one of those come, you know, back to a board meeting, so we can talk about, we're going to start a rug fee. It's going to be a very slow process, and we're probably going to just continue to lose money. So the recommendation would be that we encourage those fees to be adjusted. And everything that's, you know, non-recycling fees. We don't want to find out that all of a sudden they're charging everybody to bring recycling in because they determined that it costs money. But for all of these, we would call them miscellaneous fees, that they be, you know, changed, advertised, and then brought back to the board at the next meeting with the opportunity to review, so that we could say, you know, I've been hearing a lot about this TVs. It's a real hardship for people in Camden to have to pay for their, and then, you know, we could discuss it then if there needed to be an adjustment, and we were to decide, we really want to subsidize this because people are dumping their
But are you
TVs.
suggesting, to be clear, that we authorize finance committee and whatever, the executive or somebody to make these changes now and review them?
The management, I would say.
Okay.
Can I say, can I get clarification? So basically anything that's on a landfill fee or a tipping fee, a municipal solid waste fee, or everything else, all the other miscellaneous fees, if there are costs to the organization, you as board members should know that there's a cost associated with that. We should try to recuperate our costs at all times.
Yeah.
If it's something we're making revenue on, we're not going to charge for it. But if it's something that's costing us money, and costs are associated with overhead too. So we need to put a little bit of our overhead in there to recuperate our costs, so that each part of the operation is covering its costs. Just like we're doing with the landfill, we should be doing that with the things of handling TVs, with handling tires. We should always be trying to at least recover our costs. So I'm saying we need to keep those adjusted as in current. And then if we see something that's out of whack, we're going to recommend that based on this, we're handling this much. I'll do a little memo, says we're handling this much, and here's what it costs us to get rid of it. Here's a proposal for the change. We want to change these things, and we should be able to just make those changes. That's clear, like on the fly.
You're asking for, what do you mean by proposing?
Well, I mean, giving, not proposing, but explaining in the next board meeting.
Establish first explain later,
Yes.
so.
Report it.
Yeah.
Right,
We
so
have to
you're,
run
you
it
know,
like a business.
right, you'd be
Yeah.
telling the public, this is
Shouldn't
what
be
we're changing this,
self-sustainable.
and then it could be reviewed. But we do have the policy of the organization has been to, that wouldn't apply to recycling. So there are
Right.
definitely times when we lose money on certain aspects of recycling operation. But we don't react by all of a sudden charging a fee for,
I left that out, and I'm sorry, you're right, recycling will not be included.
So recycling, solid waste, and bag fees are excluded from that category.
Landfill, municipal solid waste and recycling,
Because we already approved the landfill CBD number already, so.
and items we make
We're
money.
just, if we want to do, we're authorizing the manager to adjust these fees and report back whenever they've been, in hindsight, what's been changed. We may hear grumblings from our towns or something, we be able to discuss it in the board meeting after it's been adjusted.
How much notice would we give the public? 30 days? Like,
the interlocal agreement does say that all fee changes will get at least 30 days notice. There,
Maybe what we could do is do a quarterly kind of look too, that'll be another way of doing it. You know, maybe if that would be a little bit more, because that would give us the 30 days to.
Well, if you did the authorization now, you have really till the, and it's the 27th of July, so September 1st, all these things are gonna be hitting the public. Which is fine, and delaying doesn't do any good. To me, in my opinion, delaying the decisions are, everybody understands now that inflation is there. And it's happening, unfortunately, it could be size nominally 10%, except in the energy sector, in others, which is a lot more. But so I think it seems to make a lot of sense to me.
And we could continue doing it the way we're doing it now. If you guys want to look at every fee.
I don't
need to.
But, I mean, they're not a lot.
That to me, it just makes me feel like I'm micromanaging.
Exactly.
And, you know, I just,
And we always have the power to adjust if something's awry.
Yeah, exactly. You know, if I do make a change, I don't take I won't take it personally if you decide that, you know, this is a hardship for people who want to lower this to this.
Yeah.
That's okay. I'm not trying to.
I would ask just when that decision's made by you to email all of us of that.
Sure, that'd be easy, you know. Yeah,
absolutely.
just so you have a heads up, because you don't get sideswiped on it. Yeah.
So you
it
need
is
a
supposed to
motion
be,
on that?
the
Well,
public notice is supposed
I,
to go out.
I honestly don't believe we need a motion for it, but.
Oh.
But we can do it just to be formal, because in the past history of this board, I was here lots of years when Allison invited me to meet about 5 years ago, when they were voting on buying a room. So, you know,
Yeah.
things have changed, but I think we should clarify that we're authorizing the manager to basically have control over these miscellaneous fees, and report back on a frequent basis as to what's been changed, so we're knowledgeable of it.
And if there are certain things where you don't want to make the decision alone,
I can always bring it
like
back.
that, you know, there are times when you,
Yeah, just
it's. I know, you know, our town managers sometimes want
Yeah.
policy direction, and so if you identify those, then just
Right.
put it on the next agenda and ask us to.
Absolutely. Can I have a motion to that effect?
I move the board direct management to adjust fees for items other than MSW as necessary to keep up with direct and indirect costs at MCSWC. The public shall be provided notice and the board shall review all fees on an annual basis.
Second,
Motion made second for discussion. All in favor? 100%, thank you. And that item, I don't know if you want to talk about, bag fee now, or that's a future discussion.
I mean, this was basically a heads up and looking for an endorsement, I suppose, from the board to have the finance committee look at, you know, potential bag fee or MSW increase scenarios.
I've already said we should do that. Yeah, so.
Yeah.
I've already mentioned it in our town,
I agree, I totally
great.
agree.
so I've already said it's going to happen.
Yeah,
at
the
some
writing's
point,
in
whether it's now or in 6 months, it's
Right.
going to happen.
Well, what was our last bag fee increases last year?
No, it's in 2018.
Yeah, that's been a long time.
If anybody follows what we do and how we're doing things, they're expecting it, or they should be.
I thought we increased bag fees last year.
Mm-mm.
decrease in costs.
Yeah, so I mean, it's just good to like
Change the number
let the
of
select boards know, or if everybody kind of
absolutely.
decides what they think their town needs
Well,
to know and be,
see,
you know,
to me,
prepared to
I thought
accept.
that because there's fewer bags in the bag. And to me,
Right.
that's a cost increase, but okay, fine. You know.
Yeah, even the
nobody
bags
said what
cost
it's calculated, huh?
even the bags cost us more now.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
terrible.
Okay, so there's no decision, but it's gonna be brought to us soon.
Yeah, I mean,
So-
we've already started working on it a little bit, and it's like, okay, it looks like it's gonna be more expensive. We'll keep working on it, but we don't wanna then come do, it is some work. So, and it involves a little bit of looking at what are, you know, what's the realm of options for the future too. You know, how far into the future do we want to look? Some of that requires a crystal ball, but some of it, you know, doesn't. We can see what, if, when we have to sign a new contract with, yeah, go for it.
Right, but I think, I was gonna say, I think we should. Be cautious not to the bag fee of the month thing, you know, increase incrementally. We should try to take a window looking forward. Inflation's not gonna go away real quickly. In fact, it would likely get worse. Because materials, like, I think we should be a little conservative and.
Oh, yeah, I agree. I mean, yeah,
People.
and that's part of the direction we want. It's like, do we want to just do it's the smallest possible increase? For, you know, looking at a very short window of time, or do we, you know, want to look at what it would mean for future scenarios, which some of that is has to do with hauling and all that.
I was gonna say, there's more components to this bag fee increase, so we have increases that are projected by the state. We have increases that are associated with fuel. We have increases that are associated with potential disposal sites.
Yeah.
So we need to look at all of those things. And then we have our own internal manpower costs. So we have to make those adjustments, just like everything else we just talked about. This is just the one other piece we haven't kind of gone through yet.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, so we don't need to move on that, but I think I'm hearing what else is saying, yeah, we need to look at it, and we need to take all these elements into account. And I'm hearing also agreement and think that we need to look forward a little bit with these costs and not try to do September or October increase and then do another one 3 months later. That's not good. That's just not good. We'll see.
I'd like to also have, in that conversation, a comparison of raising bag fees versus raising the assessment on the town.
Sure.
Yeah, we can do that.
That's easy enough.
Okay.
Because that's your option, you know, those are the two lots of money where this is coming from.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
My philosophy is a little different than yours. So
Well,
Oh,
figure it out in that meeting.
Not any individuals, lots of.
A little further apart.
We'll discuss that, we can sort of discuss all the elements. But, okay, so,
and then the budget going forward, just a quick note to everybody, there may be some things that come up that, once again, we're in that situation where the current manager was not involved in setting the budget that we're working on. And so, there, you know, any number of things like the
right,
pump, the
right,
different wells, there are different things that we may have to do,
Right.
that may come up, but we're reasonably good shape.
okay, so we don't have to do any motion on that, but except for future discussion on the bank, please, and yes, keep working on it, my area. With that, the other item that's on the agenda is, there are in our packet, the unaudited FY 22 financial numbers, that and Allison summarized some of the expenses and variations in that, but again, it's unaudited, there are some.
Yeah, it's not only unaudited, but it's unfinished.
Absolutely.
And so that'll be something that, there are a few things in there that there's been a little bit of discrepancy about whether certain things should have come out of certain reserve funds or not. It relates back to what I talked about at the beginning, that, for example, we budgeted to spend $60,000 or $70,000 out of one of the reserve funds for the leachate, to replace the leachate line and to dig up the road and pave that. That didn't happen, but there are some things that are tangentially related to that may make sense to fund out of that reserve fund too. But we've been going back and forth with Jody a little bit to catch up on some of the, he needed some of the board votes on things, like the containers and. But that'll be something that the finance committee is gonna look at with the auditor, and then we can look at it for next time. But overall, nothing was disastrous.
I think that's a good shit, but to,
Unless do you know what I'm saying, something, Dave, you're looking.
Oh,
at me
no,
like-
no, it's just,
It's like, oh, really? Nothing was disastrous.
well, I think it's in that regard, we look at the full data here, it looks like expenses and revenue, don't quite jive, but there's adjustments still have to be made, correct, Allison?
Which one, which
Well,
version is
the
this?
general expenses we're looking at.
We got a whole different version just 2 days ago.
Oh,
after
okay.
We said that
very close.
it's very close. It's right now, the most recent version has it to $10,000 behind.
More expenses than.
Yes, and that is because she doesn't feel that she has a vote, the vote from the board to spend
Right.
out of one of the reserve accounts.
Right.
So, but in reality for us, the reserve accounts are really no different than the unassigned fund balance. It's not like our towns. We are really the guardians of all of those funds and can spend from them without asking voters. So sometimes whether or not at the end of the year,
Unlike select.
right, or no, we, like with our select boards, in our towns, we can't spend from the unassigned fund balance without holding a special town meeting. So for Midco Solid Waste, we can do all those things. We have the power to assess, and then we mostly make the other choices ourselves. So at the end of the year, if we were like, well, no, that came out of the facility improvement reserve rather than being $10,000 behind, it's really the same pot of money. It's nicer when you can say, well, this is what we planned at the beginning of the year, but we're a little over in some of the labor lines. We're saving money on the manager part and the benefits. But it's pretty close. But we've been spending from them every year. So.
That's good news, because the numbers are in here a little bit broader apart. I realize it's not the latest and greatest.
No, well, some of that is because we forgot to, so at the end of the year, they take like $100,000 from, we budgeted to spend, what was it, from the 45,000, for instance, from the unassigned fund balance to offset taxes. Well, for some reason, they don't like to journal that in the financial statements. So it showed that $45,000 is supposed to come from the undesignated fund balance is showing up as uncollected revenue. And I had a fit about it with Jody, and she said, well, the auditor told us not to do that. And I was like, well, then this makes these, I believe that these financial reports should be a tool for the board to be able to, and for management to be able to look through and be like, how are we doing? And so if you're going to put a bunch of stuff on there and then not call it collected revenue, there was $100,000 transfer to Camden National Bank for the, where we have the Camden Wealth Management for the closure fund. All of these things aren't in there, spending from the reserve accounts. None of that, it said, zero spent from these reserve accounts. So it really throws it off. We did get an update from Jody that she reviewed it with the auditor, and he is okay with taking that like 45,000 from the unassigned fund balance and all these. It's they get into this thing where they've been told by one auditor at some time, well, the best practice is this, and then that becomes the most important thing. But this new guy that we have, the Brewer, that we switched to a couple of years ago, he's been really good. And what we found is that when we say we really need it, you to do it in a way that makes sense for us, he's been like, oh, okay.
I think ideally, that's our point of the P&L is in here, the profit and loss. It shows more loss than there is. In worst case scenario, it should have been annotated to some of the points Alice just made. So you don't have to be an accountant to say, oh, this doesn't account for the $100,000 that you approved from reserve fund. That's what's the financial rule.
And because it also makes it look like, hold on, did we forget to do this? Or did we, because I was looking, I was like, oh, I guess we didn't pay Camden National either, or we shouldn't have to, but so that's the long term.
Bottom line is just, we're heading toward it looking, okay. Right, too, but we'll have more by the next time. And maybe even other things.
We're trying to study the auditor, so.
Yeah, I get it. Any other questions on financials? Okay, with that, then we would be moving into executive session. I would like a motion to leave the board meeting and adjourn the executive session under pursuant to contract 1 MRSA 405, parent 6D, for contracts and personnel matters 1 MRSA 405. 405, yeah, 405-6, parent 6, parent A. One motion,
So moved.
second, motion made the second, all those in favor?